Namaskar and welcome to Sansad Television. I am Vishal Dahiya and you're watching our show Perspective, where we bring you detailed analysis of key national and international issues. Today we're going to talk about draft national curriculum framework. Now, in fact, the Ministry of Education has invited suggestions on the draft national curriculum framework for school education. The NCF brings to life the aims and commitments of the NEP, that is National Education Policy. Now, this includes the full range of human capacities, values and dispositions that are aimed to be developed in the school education. Now, it is integrative and holistic with the equal status to all subjects and learning domain from maths to sports. It integrates vocational education in all schools and there is integration across subjects as well while developing a rigorous subject understanding and capacities. The draft NCF, in fact, aims to break the straitjacket of streams and recommends a bouquet of 8 curricular areas, each for class 9, 10th and class 11, 12th as well. In fact, in class 11, 12, students can opt for any 16 choice-based courses from the 8 curriculum streams to be covered over 4 semesters. These 8 curricular areas are humanities, mathematics and computing, vocational education, physical education and sports, arts education, social science, science and interdisciplinary areas as well. For classes 9th and 10th, the annual schedule will be followed, but 2 board exams for each year has also been recommended. So today we'll take a closer look at all these recommendations which have been made in the draft, rather pre-draft NCF, which has been put in the public domain for more suggestions. Of course, there'll be a lot of discussion which will happen over these suggestions, but we'll try and understand the basic concepts here, the basic underlying theme, what actually the NCF, the draft NCF is aiming to achieve, and what are the key aspects here. And for more on this, we're joined by a distinguished panel of experts. Let me first introduce them to you. Beginning with, we have 2 of them in the studio. Aditi Tandon is joining us, senior journalist. She keeps a close tab on all the developments in the education beat as well. Ms. Shalini Agarwal is also here with us. She's the principal of Dwarka International School. Welcome, both of you, Shalini and Aditi. We are also joined by 3 more panelists. Swati Popat-Vats is joining us, well-known educationist. Dr. C.B. Sharma, Professor of Education at IGNOU, is also with us. And we also have Ms. Vrinda Sarup, former Secretary in the Department of School Education and Literacy in the Ministry of Education, Government of India. Welcome, all of you as well, to Sansad TV. So let me begin with you first, Aditi, since you must have, written reports on that, kept a close watch on both the National Education Policy and the NCF, which flows on the aims and principles of what the NEP goes ahead and tries to establish. What are we looking at here when we're talking about draft NCF for school education? Some key points I mentioned in terms of, what will happen from class 9 to class 12 in terms of more subjects, more choices as well. But the larger picture, what's the larger picture here?
See, the larger picture, as you rightly said, stems from the National Education Policy, which had a very clear vision of where we want to take India from today onwards. The larger goal of the country is to build a developed nation by 2047. That's the stated goal of the government. Now, how do you get there? The only way you get there is by creating citizens who are ready for the world. Now, getting ready for the world is a very challenging task given the current education system, which we all know focuses on rote learning. There's a lot of premium attached to memorization, but there's little premium attached to innovation, to creativity, to basic and general problem-solving abilities. Also, we've seen, you and I have both been to schools. Our generation was very different. Now, the NCF proposes to create a very different generation because they are even talking about things like embroidery and vocational education. They're talking about clothes making. They're also talking about sculpting as actually, accepted disciplines within the school curriculum.
Okay.
So this appeals to the modern day student because what is happening around us? What kind of jobs are students seeking? Students are not seeking engineering and doctor professions as a norm anymore. That was the case with our generation. But to actually get the pool of today's student ready for tomorrow's job market, where there'll be multidisciplinary job offers available in the market. Do you have a student who's ready to take up a career in music? Do you have a physician who also has sculpting skills? Do you have, the capacity in the system to create a whole, a well-rounded personality? A personality that is good at his job, a personality that knows his, has his knowledge system in place, and a personality that's ready for the world as a good citizen representing his own country.
Okay.
That's the broader outlook of NEP, and that is the direction where NCF is taking the country, because they are for the first time trying to break the silos that prevented children in higher secondary to take, for instance, physics with history or biology with music. So we actually have a scenario where all this is going to become possible. We'll hear from Shalini how that will become possible.
Okay.
Now that's the question.
In fact, that's the next step which we want to go, because these combinations look really interesting, which Aditi was talking about. And one thing which I was also mentioning, Shalini, in my introduction was that it looks like the NCF is aiming to break that straitjacket of streams, because from higher classes onwards, from 9th onwards, in fact, the students and their parents start thinking in those terms as to whether a child has to
Science.
opt for science stream with PCB, PCM, or commerce or humanities as well.
Right.
But the bouquet right now seems very big, larger one.
See, the bouquet has always been there. CBSE has always offered that. As far as CBSE is concerned, there has hardly ever been a system where a child had to take only the science stream or the commerce or the humanities. The problem arises in A, the making of the timetable. Second, the career options, which were so limited. So if a child is going for, going for engineering, so there is no option for that child but to take certain subjects, because the colleges then demand for the same. But now that we have the new age careers coming in, and that is something that is giving the child a huge new world in which they can explore various subjects, and that's so exciting that they need not to stick to certain subjects.
Okay.
For example, we were just advising some of our students who are not good in physics, but yet they want to do engineering. And we have a career counselor in who gave them the option that you just need to do maths, you can do it even with humanities, and go ahead and do engineering. There are students who wish to pursue medical. And apparently, if you do it from outside India, you could do it with just biology and maths. You don't need physics and chemistry.
Okay.
So NCF definitely is a very exciting step, much needed change, because now we definitely need to move where we can offer our students that kind of freedom and flexibility to choose, and then have those kind of versatile careers which they can experiment with and they can do.
Okay.
So it is absolutely aligned, and it's coming out of NEP. Yes, NEP is something that we are all studying, and we are planning. Every school is working on how to implement it. NCF, we have already started studying that how we can translate the ideas that it contains into actual ground reality.
Okay.
That is going to be a little challenging.
Indeed. We'll look at those challenges as well, how it will be implemented. But first, let me bring in, Ms. Vrinda Sarup here as well. Mr. Sarup, in terms of the issue of policy matter, because these are policy matters, as in you take a policy decision, you put in place a certain ecosystem or certain measures, and then start implementing them. When we are looking at the NCF, and specifically vis-a-vis the school education, how far have we come? Because there are various other aspects as well. Just bringing in a national curriculum framework, telling students to opt from 16 subjects, or perhaps, giving them an option to go in for 2 board exams in a year in class 9th or 10th, that itself might not be sufficient. There are additional areas involved as well. What are those areas?
So let me just take a minute to get the perspective right on what is the salience of an NCF. So as was said, there is a policy, the NEP has been declared. Now our NCF is what brings that policy closer to the classroom or the school situation. So it tries to develop detailing of what the policy intended and what will actually happen in the school. So it will detail much more on the curricular aspect of each subject. So there may be some prioritization of some subjects. some topics, some subjects, as somebody said, it's a new generation, it's a new world today. So what in maths should be the topmost subjects, topics which should be covered? What can be, transcended? What can be merged? What can be dropped? So there is a detailing in that in the perspective of the policy. The second most important thing is that NCF gives you a direction to develop further the syllabus, which will actually be used in schools. And it also will give you the indicators for what will be your textual materials, what will be important for training of teachers. So this is this is what the NCF does. It gives you far more detail. It remains honest to the policy, but it also gives you practicalities, details, subject-wise, sector-wise, intersectorally where it's important, let's say like gender. It's a cross-cutting theme.
Okay.
So how will books, whether of maths or of history or of geography or of English, blend the right kind of direction that we want gender to be reflected in our materials and in our teaching and in our value system. So this is the salience of an NCF.
Okay, okay. Swati, how would you look at these particular aspects which Ms. Vrinda was pointing out in terms of what the NCF seeks to go ahead and put in place? A mechanism to supplement what the aims or vision of NEP is actually, and that means, granular details like what kind of subjects to study, at which standard, what will be the combinations involved, and how will we move ahead?
So first of all, it's a 600-page document, and there are 7 more volumes which are supposed to be coming out. And they've also clearly stated that when you refer to this, also refer to the National Curriculum Framework for Teacher Education. So it's very important to understand that all this keeps the teacher at the center of it all. So once the teacher has understood the core principles or the core theme or the core vision of the NCF, everything will fall into place. If you see on page 15, they have given their goals very, very clearly that the NCF is goal directed, it's practice enabling, it is educationally valid, it's engaging, it's improvement driving, it's diversity embracing, and it's mutually reinforcing elements. So when you look at all this that the NCF has put together, it makes the job actually of everybody that much more easier and more cohesive.
Okay.
Because right now what you will see is that people work on different dimensions, whether it's the teacher, whether it's the school, whether it's the board, whether it's the parent. This NCF will bring all the stakeholders together and will bring about that aim that our first participant spoke about of achieving that goal that our students should not only be global citizens but international minded citizens.
Okay. Okay. But Swati, what changes for students?
Yeah. Changes for students, if you see, the way of teaching has changed. The power of the student is more, which means I have more choice in the subjects that I'm going to be selecting. When the teacher changes her style of teaching, like on page 23, there is something called pramans. So praman taken from Indian culture to make a teacher understand how teaching will be implemented in the classroom. This is definitely going to benefit the student. The student is going to have a classroom that was not based on rote learning or not based on expectations only of the student to answer questions, but on expectations now on participation, understanding, subject connections, and so much more.
Okay. Okay. Professor Sharma, you've been looking at all these aspects for quite some time. What we would like to understand is the integration of the school education with the higher education, given the fact that these changes will be brought in as the NCF is talking about, or the overall national education policy, and all of us understand that there have been changes at the higher education level as well. So that integration, when we are talking about moving from school education to the higher education, with all these changes, will it become a little more complicated or more easier? Please unmute yourself. Professor Singh? Thank you. Thank you, sir.
The national curriculum framework is very different to the previous national curriculum framework, and it is meant to be for those who are stakeholders. The national education policy is one of the shortest policy that we ever had. It's just 62 pages written in formulas. And it was necessary to explain that in a larger document. And that is what just Swati ji said. The 62-page national education policy has been explained in 628 pages of the national curriculum framework. So what is it? We have tried to say, and I was integral part of the whole debate of national education policy, so I can definitely say, we are trying to shift from the India-centric to Bharat-Kendrit Shiksha. Everybody was asking us, what will it be? When you say Bharat-Kendrit Shiksha, will it be entirely different from what we have been doing? Yes. What you said, students will have more choice. And as chairman of the National Institute of Open Schooling, I had practiced this in NIOS. We had given the option to students to choose physics with agriculture and dance. Why not? And everybody criticized, including the people in the University Grants Commission. They said you are creating a chaos for the higher education. And that gave us insight that there is no connect between the school and the higher education. This document brings them both together. And that is why you will read in the national education policy, what we have said, every PhD student, whether one is working on nanotechnology, will have to spend some time in school as well. We are trying to bring school and higher education closer. Without that, we cannot do any good to the society. These are some of the points that I can mention on this program immediately. But the national education policy is entirely a departure from the previous way of looking at education in India.
Okay.
And that is why we have said that any combination can be chosen by the students, anytime exam, anytime study, and even practice. So why can a child not do carpentry and geometry together?
Okay.
So that is what. That needs explanation. We were being asked since 2020, 29 July, when the policy came, how will it be done? And my colleague principal is sitting in your studio. She also mentioned the problem, the challenge is, how are we going to conduct the exams?
Mm-hmm.
I was asked the same question by the vice chairman of UGC. Sharmaji, you will create a chaos. I said, why? How will we conduct exam? I said, that's not the problem of the students. The national education policy is student-centric. We have been saying, make a class student-centric, make curriculum student-centric, make the system student-centric. Mm-hmm. The National Institute of Open Schooling conducts board exam every day of the year. Why can we not do as a nation?
Okay.
A child can appear for physics 12th class the day and the time in a city when he or she chooses to appear for the exam.
Okay.
This policy is so liberal, so flexible, and the explanation is the national curriculum framework.
Okay. Okay. We'll come to the challenges of implementation as well. But before that, as Professor Sharma was also pointing out that there are many stakeholders. The most important stakeholder in this policy is the student, is the child. So Shalini, I'd like to ask you, to make children also understand, those young students and their parents as well, what changes for them again, in this national curriculum framework? And I'm asking this from the point of view of some of the, steps which I pointed out from the NCF, that is, in class 9th and 10th, what will be the options available? 11th and 12th, how will be the options available and will be implemented as well, in comparison to what is done right now, the straitjacket streams?
What changes mostly for students, it's very, very student-centric, which is how education should be. Because as rightly said, they are the most important stakeholders. So currently the system that we are living in, it talks about an exam which is end of the term. That means the student is so stressed. His entire sum total of knowledge is dependent on that one day, where he may or may not be able to perform. There could be so many reasons. Now, NCF and NEP together, they seek to correct that. So when they're talking about an examination system which the student can opt for, that I am ready for the exam, I would like to take it now, which is very good. how we are going to actually translate it into ground reality is something that is for the system and for us to work it out, which I'm sure once we have a kind of a roadmap and a structure laid out, it would not be so difficult. We'll be able to do it. The next thing that changes is that students till now were just focused on pure academics. That is, they would take the subjects which they felt is going to get them to a lucrative career. So engineering or like Aditi said, medical, those were the options that a child felt that that's the only thing they can do. But now there is, with NCF coming in, which has, these different curriculums laid down with different disciplines laid down, which a student has to pick up the options from.
Okay.
So automatically a child is learning certain vocational subjects, is doing something from the arts, which could be music, it could be dance, it could be a vocational skill like carpentry or anything, because these skills are important. More and more there is a realization that life skills are as important, if not more important, than pure academics.
Okay.
Because our students definitely were lacking through no fault of theirs.
And in terms of pure academic subjects also, what the document also talks about, that it's not just about learning of concepts, it's about application of those concepts.
Application, because that is what I was coming to. The students, through no fault of theirs, were lacking in the application. So there was no emphasis on the critical thinking. The entire emphasis was, and it continued to be, on rote learning. So a student might know the concept, yet not do well in the examination. The other student would not know the concept so well, but would be able to, memorize certain facts and figures and would end up doing brilliantly.
Okay.
So that's somewhere down the line, that's not what education should be or what we should be looking at. And this hopefully will correct that.
Okay. Before we head into the break, Aditi, from your view, what changes again for the students? Because it's really important for us to understand, because they're the ones who will have to, carry it on their shoulders. Of course, teachers are involved, the entire system is involved, but it is all meant for them.
Yeah, I agree with you. In fact, after a long time, everybody is asking the question, what is the real purpose of education? Or what is the real purpose of going to school? So what changes for a student? If I look at the NCF in totality, read with the National Education Policy, what I can clearly see is there's a focus on very interesting elements. There's a focus on digital literacy. There's a focus on developing a child's ethical consideration, that he should be able to weigh, the difference between what is right and what is wrong. Then there's a clear emphasis on the Indian knowledge systems. Are we teaching our children the glory of our legacy? For instance, we don't know, many of us don't know that the mention of Prithvi Sutra goes back to the Atharva Veda. So, are we teaching that in schools? Do our schools teach anything about the fact that an Indian king called Raja Bhoj of the Malwa region actually wrote a massive granth on architecture in the 11th century? No, because what our schools teach, what our universities teach is that architecture originated in 17th century France. So NCF and NEP together make room for all kind of knowledge. How India contributed to the knowledge systems of the world, what was the context of those discoveries, all that is also going to come in. Like one of the panelists mentions that we go back to our roots. What is this entire exercise all about? It reminds me of the Gurukul system, where teachers and students used to live in a community and where students were taught 64 different life skills, not just knowledge, but pragmatic life skills. So all our gods and goddesses actually came out of the Gurukuls, adept in the art of hairstyling as well as the art of weapons.
Okay.
So you create a holistic individual who's ready for war and who's also ready to give a beautiful governance structure to the country.
Okay.
So that's the larger purpose.
Okay, so holistic individual with integrated approach to learning and understanding of
life
concepts and
skills.
application as well, life skills also pointing out. Hold your thoughts there. We'll take a short break here, but on the other side of the break in this discussion, we'll also talk about the implementation part, the challenges there which needs to be overcome, or the tweaks which need to be made further in this draft. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching our show Perspective, where we are talking about draft national curriculum framework for school education. And let's now focus on the implementation part. Swati, I'd like to bring you in here, and when we are looking at, we've spoken about various aspects of the NCF and emanating from the overall theme or aims of the NEP also. But we will also have to look at the implementation part. How are we going to move ahead? What are the challenges there? What are the stakeholders involved and their, job in this entire process?
We need good, well-trained teachers for all the subjects that we are now offering to the students. Because if you don't have proper teachers, schools may not allow children to opt for those subjects, which is going to become a major problem. That happened in the IB board also. When IB entered India, main was choice to be given about music, carpentry, but they didn't have teachers and many schools wouldn't give this option. Number two is, as a country, we are very hesitant to accept any change. So we shouldn't waste time too much on too many debates about its pros and cons, etc. A lot of criticism will come in from many quarters that it's a very heavy document. But if you study the documents of other countries, like of Australia, I've studied their curriculum for school education. It's a very, very integrated document available on their website. So we shouldn't worry about these things. It's time to embrace the change. Number three, education is a concurrent subject, which means states will take their own sweet time to implement this, and it shouldn't happen that they waste time and then suddenly now the exams have changed and you did not give enough time to the teachers or the students to adapt to that change. They say devil lies in the details. I say the devil lies in not looking at the details. So it is very important that everybody goes through the NCF in detail. There are such brilliant chapters for assessment, for mathematics education, with examples given, excellent examples given. And my last one, inclusion and special education needs a separate NCF by itself, which has not been covered in this NCF that much. So I would say this.
Okay. Vrindaji, from your point of view, because you've been at the helm of affairs in the ministry when we're talking about school education, these challenges and very important ones, specifically when we are looking at resources, as an example of IB board, which was cited by Swati here, the availability of teachers, the availability of resources as well, that becomes the first and foremost challenge.
I would put that as a later challenge. I think the immediate challenge, of course, is to convert a very sensible teacher training, textbooks, which will actually be what the student will use and what the teacher will use in her school, in her classroom. So I think NCF, by going public, is also seeking views, and I'm sure there will be inputs which will help to improve it further. And then there is simultaneously activity going on the production of textbooks based on this NCF, or the teacher curriculum based on what this NCF is pointing you to. So the detailing is now, something which is critical, because that's what will enter the classrooms, and that is where children will be assessed. That's how teaching will be done. So that is the immediate issue, and we need to pay a lot of attention to how we're going to translate these ideas, these desires, these aspirations into something which can carry undiluted into a school.
Okay.
So that's one practicality. The second, of course, is when you're doing that process, how are you relating all those aspirational parts of the NEP articulated further in the NCF into those specific subjects? And let me give you an example that vocational education is something which, many of us are hoping that this NEP, this NCF, this reorganization of the educational streams is going to make it a very central part of a student's choice, and a student's choice to build up a future career. So these are very critical, and its interface with that student's academic work. And as the principal was saying, they have practical problems about creating the timetable, the space, the teachers. So it's a huge realignment. And if we don't pay attention to what kind of materials and course curriculum we are actually giving vocational education. So this is one.
Okay.
The second, I think, most critical one, which I think several panelists have alluded to, and I think it's probably the most important, is that this is the first time we are trying to move away from rote and decidedly move towards critical thinking, higher order reasoning, applicability, as you said. Now, that means that your whole nature of textbooks is going to be different. Your assessment systems, not just in the boards, you have to start that assessment system right from class 4 and 5. So this whole orientation of reassessments, how those assessments are going to happen, how the teacher is going to understand how to assess. I think these are the fundamentals that I would pay attention to. And I think these are the most critical aspects if you want any of this to translate into what we think aspirational India should have.
Okay. Okay. Professor C.B. Sharma, quite a lot of challenges there, as both Swati and Ms. Vrinda are pointing out, specifically when we are looking at integrating, or rather going in more detailing of all these proposals, specifically looking at the training of teachers, putting in place the curriculum as well, putting in place the resources required also.
Let me mention a few things that have already taken place because they are not in the public domain. Perhaps some of us don't know. The first is 25 focus groups were created. They worked on different areas. I was member of the alternative schooling focus group. And we have looked at how can we make alternative schools possible and how many types of schools can come into action in India. We had sort of crippled the schooling system through the Right to Education Act. We have looked at the Right to Education Act again and worked on the 25 focus groups which have submitted the reports to the NCERT, and hopefully very soon they'll be in the public domain. Now, second very important thing that has taken place is what the principal in the studio had mentioned of there are no teachers for certain areas. And even Swati ji mentioned. School clustering has been mentioned in the policy which has already been done. Although I must accept it is not perfect at the moment. We had said schools within a radius of 5 kilometers, schools in the radius of 50 kilometers have been included, which is an aberration, but that will be corrected. And the clustering of the school will function, and the problem of resources for every school will be handled and tackled.
Okay.
The right to education is being amended. There is a committee where I'm again a member. The Honorable Minister Annapurna Devi ji is the chairperson. We are revising the right to education. Why do we need to revise the right to education? Because we have to include from 3 years up to 18 years in the schooling process. And there are many other changes that are required to be made to make the national education policy possible. So, clustering of the school, focus group reports, the right to education being revised, and the most important is the 4-year B.Ed program. It has been mentioned again and again, and you will find reflection of it in the National Curriculum Framework as well. The teacher education has to be 4-year now. We have already rolled out 57 central government institutions have been identified, including the IITs, which are going to provide teacher education. And that is a concern of everyone. Who will teach? We have divided the teacher training into 3 streams. The foundation stream, the middle stream, and the secondary stream. After 12th class, a child will opt to become a teacher and opt also to become a primary or a foundation teacher, and will be trained for 4 years in that sector. Details I cannot give you now, but please look at the NCT website and read for the integrated teacher education program. Okay. This has already been rolled out. What I would say is a lot of work has already been done towards the implementation of the national education policy, and this is one of the many activities that are being done. And what Swati ji was saying, that there are other documents to come which will detail out how every sector will be taken care of. The most important, and I'm sure Swati ji will be happy to hear this, is the foundation stage. That is a concern I can definitely say is of the Prime Minister. He is very concerned that that's the foundation. And that if you don't prepare the child well, he or she will not be able to get what the schools are to have to offer. So a lot of work has been done on it. We are working on transforming the Anganwadis. There are 13 lakh Anganwadis and more than 3 crore children are in Anganwadis. We are working on their transformation, retraining of the Anganwadi workers. So a lot of work is being done to implement the national education policy. This is one of the major steps.
Okay. Clearly, that's pretty heartening to hear in terms of those measures which Professor Sharma is talking about. Looks like a lot of work is going on as well.
Yes.
But Shalini, coming back to you, and when we are looking at the challenges, I'd like to understand from you, because you're the principal of a school, and we're talking about school as a level here. Students in classes 9 to 12th, the NCF, school education NCF, which we are discussing right now. A direct question and a simple one as well. Are schools in India ready right now to embrace this change? One. Two, what needs to be brought in to help the schools and the school administration as well to ensure that these changes are implemented in a very proper manner?
Are the schools ready? No. But we will have no option but to become ready. When COVID had come in, the schools were not ready to go into an online teaching module. Teachers were not ready. And they became ready practically overnight. So it is high time that, yes, the change came in. And once the change is here, the schools will embrace it. Some will embrace it willingly. Some will embrace it because there is no other option to it. But it is a very necessary and a very required change, and it will be done, and it is needed to be done.
But what are the key challenges which we are looking at here from the school's point of view?
Biggest challenge, teacher training. See, while this is completely student-centric, we cannot lose sight of the fact that it is the teachers who are going to, lead this change. And for this to be successful, teacher training is of utmost importance. Relentless, continuous, absolute teacher training.
For example, one of the aspects in this NCF is, that subjects will have to be independent, will have to be taught independent of the other subjects. For example, if a student is taken in biology, need not be studying chemistry or physics as well.
Absolutely. So that is a huge departure. We in India are ingrained to, link the subject, while it also talks of interdisciplinary. So there is a connection, yet a child has the freedom to be independent. The assessment pattern, for example, again, a major departure. So if we are asking a question which is thought-provoking, and the teacher is not able to assess the answer correctly, then again, there is a huge gap. So all these things will need to be covered in training, and the biggest, again, challenge I feel that we in the metro cities might be able to overcome them relatively easily. What about the rural areas? Where it is a struggle? I think all schools are facing the challenge, where teaching is no longer a preferred profession. So just now, our worthy panelist said that the child would choose to become a teacher immediately after clearing 12th. That is a very ideal scenario, but how many times does that actually happen?
Okay.
There is a profession that is chosen, and maybe then there is a students rethink, and then they decide to come into teaching line. So there are many practical challenges, and there are many pockets of India where it is a challenge to get teachers, leave alone good teachers or bad teachers, teachers per se, that who can be in the classroom. And for NCF to succeed, and which it must, we need good quality teachers who are well trained, not only to handle that transformation in the classroom transaction, but to adapt themselves to the change in the assessment pattern.
In the assessment pattern
also.
Okay. Aditi, in your view, when we're talking about challenges, when we're talking about what needs to be done, most of them have been pointed out by other panelists, Shalini here, Swati also, Vrindaji also was pointing to certain aspects. And work is ongoing on various of these, most of these issues, as Professor Sharma was referring to. But what remains the single biggest challenge, or the first and the foremost few challenges when we are looking at? Because the implementation part will have to be very holistic. We'll have to take into consideration all aspects.
You see, the NCF talks of two forms of assessment. Like Shalini ji was mentioning, assessment is going to be the biggest challenge because children will come with their own knowledge system to the classroom. A child in the foundation stage will write a poem, maybe draw a painting. How will the teacher be able to read the mind of the child and then to put him in the direction where the NCF actually wants that child to go? And the foundation that is laid will actually determine what kind of a person this child will become later on. Because right now what's happening is the kind of assessment that we have in our schools, the kind of pressure that is exerted on children. You see, every other child grows up to want to become an IITian, want to enter the IIMs later on, or wants to get into some technical school. I was looking at the data points that were presented to the parliament recently. In the last 5 years, there have been 61 students, deaths by suicide in the top technical schools of the country, with IITs leading the pack with around 30 deaths by suicide. So the challenge right now for the NCF and the NEP and the entire stakeholder community is to create a system that does not pressure the student to eye that IIT seat, because that's not the end of life.
That aids the student instead of, putting more challenges to them.
When Shalini was talking about interdisciplinary studies, a beautiful story came to my mind. I'll just quickly narrate it. We as students learnt of a 19th century inventor called Michael Faraday. He was a bookbinder. He happened to listen to 3 important lectures by British scientist of acclaim, Humphrey Davy, at that time. So he took notes of those lectures and went to present those notes to Davy. And he said, here are the notes that I casually listened to. After, listening to your lectures, I penned them down. Please accept my gift and give me a job in your lab as an assistant. So this man, Davy, gives him a job as the chief bottle washer. And what does Michael Faraday become? He becomes the man who discovered benzene, who discovered electromagnetism. He was a bookbinder. So all of us are talking about teaching carpentry with history, teaching physics with mathematics. So there is evidence in history of people who were bookbinders and went on to become scientists. So that's possible. That's the challenge, to assess a student and take him in the direction of his creative knowledge.
Okay, so it's not just about giving opportunities, but it's about, guiding the students or the children towards those opportunities there as well. But one point which you made, Shalini, I'd like to take that to Swati ji and others here. Swati, I'd like to start with you. The challenges when we're talking about, and overall, our education system or the school education construct which we have, as Shalini was referring to, perhaps it might be a bit easier to bring this transformation in urban areas, but the challenges are more steep when we're talking about the rural setup. Is that right way of looking at it?
I would disagree, because I have worked with Anganwadi and Balwadi teachers, and sometimes I find their thirst for knowledge and their ability to unlearn is much more better and stronger than urban teachers. So I wouldn't want to make this classification. I think it all depends on who the trainers are going to be. So I think we need to focus on train the trainers. And when that happens, urban or rural, the problems will never be in place. And when we talk about rural, this is the government's goal. So I'm sure the government is going to put its best in the rural areas. My worry is actually more about the private schools, because there is where we will need to focus on ensuring that the key focus of this NCF emerges.
Okay. Professor Sharma, you've spoken a lot about what is being done, the various other processes which are working simultaneously, when we're looking at the NCF or the NEP, the overall, framing the policy and its implementation as well. What now? Where do we move from here onwards? in terms of steps to be taken, in terms of processes to be followed? Where are we heading, and what is it that we are going to do next?
See, I will again start with teacher education. This is the focus of national education policy. And in fact, the Prime Minister, while addressing on 7th August 2020, when he released the NEP, he said, this is teacher-centric policy. Teacher is at the center of this policy. And let me assure everyone that we have already started working on the 4-year B.Ed program. 57 institutions have been identified. Then NTA has been assigned the task of conducting a nationwide test for teachers to be selected to go to these institutions, which will be a national test. So we are in the process of selecting the best people and giving them the best training of 4 years duration to become teachers. That is one. Second is, you will require good books and content which is appropriate. The NCF is a testimony that the work is being done. Now, after the draft is sort of finalized, after the reactions from the common people, we will go with the final draft of the National Curriculum Framework, and then the textbooks will be written. Okay. And what Swati just now mentioned, they will have India-centric content, so, where you will not be shy of becoming a carpenter, and the 64 areas of knowledge will be incorporated.
But Professor Singh, in terms of timeline, Professor Singh, in terms of timeline, since you're talking about what will happen, how will it happen, what are we looking at in terms of implementation timeline? What are we looking at? This NCF is likely to be implementable or ready to be implemented, say perhaps from the next academic year. The graded implementation, maybe it will be implemented first for class 9th and 11th, because you can't bring those changes to students who are already in 10th and 12th.
Because I'm not part of that textbook writing, what I would expect is 2024 academic year, the new textbook for some classes will come, because this NCF will be finalized in the next 4 months or 5 months, and then the writing of the textbook will start, which will be ready for the 24-25 academic year for some classes, not all classes. And like you said, 9th and 11th first, then 10th and 12th. That's how we go about it. So I will have a feeling 2024 April session will have new text.
Okay. That's pretty much puts in place focus on things which need to be done right now, here, and of course with all stakeholders. Vrindaji, final question from you, and again, I'd like to end this discussion with that question from the perspective of the students involved, those stakeholders. What is it that they should be expecting in terms of, we've spoken about what kind of things, what changes for them, but what is it that the student should be expecting, if at all it gets implemented in a year or in 2 years, whatever the timeline may be?
So I think you have to take this gradually. The only part of the new education policy which is on the fastest roll is the foundational level NCF, which came out a little earlier, and where some materials, etc., are available. And though I don't agree with many of the panelists that we are not yet quite ready with teacher training at that level, but I think the first impact you will see on the ground for a student is extension of pre-primary for 3 years. Some have 1, some have 2 years. It's different in different parts of the country. So this standardization of 3 years pre-primary is, I think, what will first hit the ground. And I think readiness for that is far, far ahead of what we are talking about the rest of the school education. But I think that's right, because the foundational levels are the most critical. In terms of how it will make a difference to the student is, I think, the biggest shift for a student will be to move towards what are called qualitative questions, reasoning questions, reasoning assessment, conceptual clarity and understanding. This is the biggest shift that will hit a student.
Okay.
And I don't say it will hit him or her, because I think students are so moldable. that malleable, if they are taught correctly, if they are taught in this perspective, they will override any of those challenges which we sometimes around the table envisage.
Indeed.
So if they are taught well, and if they are taught in the best manners that we are all talking about, and what is envisioned in the NEP, I think they'll take to it like duck to water.
Okay.
But we have to provide the wherewithal for them, and
Indeed.
it is only fair that all systems are humming to facilitate them.
Okay, okay, indeed, fair enough. We'll have to look at all those aspects in a much holistic manner therein. Thank you so much, Vrindaji there, Swati ji for joining us, Dr. C.B. Sharma as well, and Shalini here along with Aditi also. Thank you so much for your views and input on these important aspects of the National Curriculum Framework, the pre-draft of which has been put in public domain by the Ministry of Education. Of course, a lot of discussion will follow. There are various stakeholders involved. Some of the challenges which our panelists were talking about, be it the training of teachers or bringing in those changes in the overall school education system, putting in the required resources in place as well, making changes to the curriculum, more specifically to the assessment method or the assessment criteria as well. Various aspects. We'll keep a close watch on all the developments and come back again with a different topic. Till then, keep watching Sansad Television. Thank you.